The Holy Gospel according to St. Luke, the 12th chapter. Glory to you, O Lord. Someone in the crowd said to Jesus, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the family inheritance with me." But he said to him, "Friend, who set me to be a judge or arbitrator over you?" And he said to them, "Take care. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions." Then he told them a parable. The land of a rich man produced abundantly. And he thought to himself, "What should I do? For I have no place to store my crops." Then he said, "I will do this. I will pull down my barns and build larger ones, and there I will store all my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, 'Soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, and be merry.' But God said to him, 'You fool, this very night your life is being demanded of you. And the things you have prepared, whose will they be?' So it is with those who store up treasures for themselves, but are not rich toward God." The Gospel of the Lord. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. This is what the teacher says in today's first reading. From the beginning to the end of the book of Ecclesiastes, the teacher laments how all is vanity. And in Hebrew, the word that is translated as vanity really implies lacking any purpose. It means this is pointless. This has no value. This has no meaning. What is the purpose, the writer asks? What's the purpose of my hard work? What's the purpose of being wise and having understanding? What's the purpose of all the stuff that I have accumulated? Ecclesiastes goes on like this for 12 chapters. You might have been thinking as Lauren was reading that first reading, eventually if we would read a few more verses it would get better. It doesn't. It goes on like this for 12 chapters. And by the end, there's not really a satisfying answer to the question, what's the purpose? It's honestly pretty depressing. But the question remains, and it's really the question Jesus is lifting up in today's parable. As the reading begins, there's this guy that comes up to Jesus and tries to triangulate him in a family fight. "Teacher," he says, "tell my brother blah, 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 blah." Jesus is not interested. We don't know exactly what the fight was about, but Jesus refuses to get sucked into it. And yet, he's willing to use this occasion to lift up that question of Ecclesiastes. What's the purpose? What's the purpose of this inheritance? What's its meaning? Whatever it is, if it has no purpose, it lacks meaning and real value. And so Jesus tells this parable about a guy who's already rich, but whose land has produced a big bumper crop. He has so much stuff, he's got no place to store it. Now, there's no suggestion in the story that the rich man shouldn't have this bumper crop. There's no indication that he hasn't worked hard on his farm, and there's no reason to suspect from what Jesus says that he has exploited his laborers. So the problem is not the abundance or the bumper crop itself. Rather, the issue is that the bumper crop, it has no purpose. He's just going to stick it in a barn and hope that he can be fat, dumb, and happy for years to come. But since God tells him that he's going to die suddenly that very night, it highlights the fact that his wealth has no purpose or meaning. In fact, he lacks any kind of real wealth in the sight of God. So what is it that might have given his wealth purpose? What would have made him rich towards God? This is really one of the questions of the parable that we're supposed to ask, and there are many possibilities, because indeed this guy has an abundance of wealth. But what gets in the way of this guy from considering the possibilities of meaning and purpose of that wealth come from some things that this guy seems to lack. He's got plenty of stuff. But what he seems to lack, first of all, is any sense of thankfulness. The bumper crop, it's a great thing. But even today, what might be a bumper crop could easily be wiped out by drought or insects or storms. When this guy considers his great abundance, he doesn't pause for even a moment to give thanks to God that this has happened, and he doesn't appreciate that God has given him the ability to be living in a time and a place which has allowed him to have this great abundance. That was often a problem in the ancient world, as it is even today, with droughts and wars and stuff like that that can come along and in an instant take everything away. He just goes on, and he has this conversation with himself, and he says, "Self, what should I do?" As though he were alone in the universe without any help if things didn't go so well the next year. Also, it seems that this guy lacks the desire to share his abundance. He thinks only of how he can eat and drink and be merry by himself. He doesn't even say, "Hey, I can have big parties and invite my friends and family over to come and have a great big meal with me." And he certainly isn't considering how he might help those in his community who hadn't been as fortunate as he has been. Because after all, even from a very practical standpoint, some of those crops are going to rot and go bad if he just tries to hoard them for himself. But he never seems to give any thought to any of the others. And also, this guy seems to lack any sense of generosity for the future. At the end of the story, God asks him this question: "The things that you have prepared, whose will they be?" Now, sometimes we read this as a rhetorical question, but it's not. Who would benefit from this guy's abundance when he died, whether that was tomorrow or decades away? It seems he had never given a thought to that either, and he certainly didn't have a plan. Now, we sometimes also read this parable, and we pay not so much attention to it because it sounds like something that you should do or not do if you are rich beyond imagination. And so we are tempted to file it under those things of, "Gosh, thanks, Jesus. I'll remember that in case I am so filthy rich that I have so much stuff I have to pull down my barns and build bigger barns and things like that." But this is not really what Jesus intends. Instead, he tells this parable to everybody. And it's about considering the purpose of whatever abundance we have, whatever things God has placed in your hands. And how is it that that purpose can help us to be rich towards God? What is the purpose of having any of this stuff? And for us too, purpose and meaning can't simply be found in how much stuff we have or do not have. Because rather, it's often the case for us also that we find purpose through thankfulness. And that's often hard in our society. Because we're constantly getting told that no matter how much we have, we should have more. I mean, that's the whole purpose of marketing. You should have more than you've got. And we're told that if we don't really, that we actually do not really have enough, or at least we don't have an abundance, unless we are in the top 1/10 of 1%, then maybe we have an abundance if we have network like Elon Musk or Warren Buffett or Bill Gates or somebody. But thankfulness is about recognizing what you do have. In the parable, the guy with the bumper crop may have worked hard, but if a drought had come along, it wouldn't have mattered. And giving thanks to God is a way of reminding ourselves that we are not alone in this life. God is with us, giving us strength and helping us to manage even when we don't feel like we have a huge abundance. And when we're able to give thanks for what we do have, then we actually start to find purpose and meaning. Because we recognize that purpose and meaning comes from partly reminding ourselves of God's presence in our lives, that we are not alone. And that realization starts to make us rich towards God. For us too, we often find purpose through sharing. Because you and I, we all need stuff to live. But it's really hard to have more than the bare minimum and feel like that has purpose if it doesn't make a difference in the life of somebody else. Even when I do small and simple things like buy school supplies for needy kids, it helps me to appreciate that my abundance has meaning and purpose beyond myself. There actually is purpose in having things when you can share them. And over again in the New Testament, we're called to see sharing as one of the things that actually makes us rich towards God. And then for us too, often finding purpose comes through generosity. Because this question, those things you have prepared, whose will they be, is not really a rhetorical question for us either. So over 30 years ago, I took a personal finance class as we had suddenly, in my congregation that I was serving at the time, we had been given this endowment gift, and the people that gave the endowment said, Pastor, I was 27 years old at the time, you are going to be a trustee on this account. But what do I know about this? So I took this class, hoping to learn more about just generally how you could be a good steward of these kinds of things. And the professor covered all kinds of things, but he said to us, one of the things he told us in this thing, he said, he looked around at us, most of us were in our 20s, and he said that we should plan to live into our 90s because a number of us would. And it would be bad to run out of money at that point. But he also told us, in the same breath, if you don't live even to retirement, and then he looked at us and he said, and some of you will not, you'll have money to leave to family and friends and charities and religious groups that have meaning to you. You will be able to do something beyond your lifetime that will have meaning and purpose. And that reminder has always helped me to realize that while I will not be around forever, God has given me the ability to be generous and make a difference beyond my lifetime. Abundance for us can't have purpose if it's just about whoever has the most toys at the end wins. Instead, purpose is found in the good you can do with your abundance. And using your abundance to make a difference is one of the things that makes us rich toward God. What's the purpose? The writer of Ecclesiastes asks. And through this parable, Jesus tells us that the purpose is using whatever we have, our time, our effort, and our possessions, in ways that make us rich toward God. Yet finding that meaning and purpose that makes us rich toward God can never be centered on ourselves. Instead, purpose is found in the kind of thankfulness that reminds us of God's constant presence and help in our lives. Purpose is found in sharing our abundance with others so that we become agents of God's love and presence in the life of the world around us. And purpose is found in the kind of generosity that reflects the constant generosity that God showers upon us each and every day.